Hello, everybody. My name is Bede, and the person I'm going to be talking to today is Vedanta, and we are both students of Vedanta, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what it means to be a student of Vedanta. And so I'd like to introduce you, so say hello, Vedanta.
Hi, Bede. This is very nice. I love to talk to other students about Vedanta, and I'm very curious to know your views on it.
Okay. All right. So I think one of the first things that when we're looking at Vedanta, one of the first things that's important is an understanding that Vedanta is not a subject like an academic subject. It is not a subject that we study in a book. Vedanta is actually, when it's studied properly, Vedanta is a light in which we can actually see our lives in a far clearer way. So the temptation is, of course, is to see it as a subject, because we've studied things at school and all that stuff, and because there are Vedantic books and Vedantic talks, sometimes we can miss the point that Vedanta is actually a very practical and illuminating light, so that we can actually very, very clearly see what it is we're doing in our daily living. That's what Vedanta is.
That's beautiful to hear. And at the same time, it brings up, I don't fully understand when you say it is not a subject. I mean, when I study history, I read a book.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you mean when you say it is not a subject?
What I mean is, when we're talking about a subject, it's not a subject that's removed from me. It's not a subject. The subject in Vedanta is me and my life. It is not a subject called Vedanta. You see, if I think I'm studying Vedanta, something over there, something that's away from me, then I'm going to have big problems. But if I understand that what I'm doing is that Vedanta enables, the subject matter of Vedanta is me. The subject matter is how I live my life on a daily basis, and and what I am in terms of my actual reality. So that's the subject matter. So, and we use Vedanta to study this subject matter, because otherwise what happens is we don't study our life. We study this academic subject called Vedanta, and we learn about the self and freedom and all of this sort of stuff and what it is and all that very nice stuff. But the problem is it doesn't shed light on our life. And if that's the case, if we study Vedanta in an academic way, or as a subject that isn't us, but it's a thing called Vedanta over there, then we're not using it as a mirror in which to see our life as we live it. Is that clearer?
That's clear. So basically you're saying I am studying myself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But through Vedanta.
Through Vedanta. Well, let's hope it's interesting.
Now, the thing that's another thing that's important is that we need to look at our lives in an honest way, and what's presented in Vedanta, and when Vedanta presents what our fundamental problem is, there are fundamental resistance. There's a fundamental resistance into seeing this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unfold what the problem is, and I'm also going to unfold, and I'm going to sort of talk about why it is so difficult to see that we have this problem. But you see, unless we understand thoroughly that we have a problem, and that Vedanta has a method to resolve that problem, we won't value the solution. Unless we see that we suffer from the disease, we're not going to we're not going to be very spontaneously interested in the cure. And one of the requisites for Vedanta is an understanding of the condition, the actual condition that we are in. And when we look at ourselves as a human being, as an individual living in this world, we need to see that there is a problem in relation to that activity of myself living in the world. I am suffering from a particular type of problem, a very specific problem that affects every area of my life. And that's what I want to sort of go into.
I hear what you say, Bede, but when I look around me and I look at my friends, they all seem to think that they don't have any problems, but their behavior.
Yeah, that's right. Now,
how do you recognize
that's right.
this?
That's a very interesting point. You see, if my problem is painful, which I'll go into, first of all, I will be in denial. I will want to resist the fact. You see, in our culture, what's considered heroic and proper is if the fact that I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm confident, I'm my own person, and all of that stuff. And I also have to present. I have a compulsion to promote myself to others for that, because if I promote myself to others with that notion and say, I present myself well and say, look, I'm such a cool, calm, confident, positive individual, that actually defends me. It's a defense against this particular problem that I have, so I think I'll now go into what this problem is, because the thing is that unless, this is one of the truisms, Vedanta isn't asserting this to annoy people or in an argumentative way. It's just simply unfolding a fact about our life as a human being. The people who see this as their problem, they will find Vedanta very relevant. If they don't see they've got this as a problem, they, of course, will not. They won't see it as relevant.
Okay.
Now, so one of the fundamental things is that because I feel that that my life and my physical body are one and the same, I am subject to harm. I am fundamentally insecure, because what can happen is at any moment or any day I can die, and we've been around long enough where we've seen friends die. So the fact of the matter is that by nature, because we believe and because we experience ourselves as a biological organism living in this world, inherently there is insecurity and fear. And there's also the knowledge that every relationship I have, eventually every person I know is going to die or perish, one way or the other. We want to keep that as far away as possible. We want to protect ourselves. But fundamentally, psychologically, there is an experience of ourselves as being very insecure, not free from harm. The possibility of harm can happen anytime. So what happens is we have a fundamental insecurity. Now, when I in myself feel that I myself am insecure, out of that insecurity comes a tremendous drive to be secure. And so what happens, yep, go.
So what happens is you're saying that there is a fundamental feeling of insecurity. Yep. But when I see myself, there are also times when I don't recognize this insecurity. I did not in the past.
Now that's a very good point. Now what happens is this. If I am insecure in myself and I experience myself, and this is what I assume to be the truth of myself, I am insecure, I will then seek people and things to act as a defense against that feeling of insecurity. Okay? And so when I get, and ideas, people, things, and ideas. So what can happen is that I can anesthetize the insecurity by dependence on objects. Okay?
Yes, that's very true. I recognize that. Yes, anesthetize. That is, you become numb to it.
You become, it's as if it isn't there, but it's there all right. Because let's say, for example, you feel a relationship that's important to you is a source of security.
Yes.
And then what happens is something happens to that relationship. Suddenly what is revealed is the anguish. Now this is the problem. We think that it's the actions of the other person that is upsetting us. That's the experience. But what it actually is, from a Vedantic point of view, it is actually a revelation of the very thing that motivates our life, a fundamental happiness.
Yes.
But we think, you see, think about the last time, have you ever experienced the feeling of hurt by the actions of others?
Oh, yes, sure.
Exactly. It's a common human experience. Now,
Yes.
and it's a tremendous anguish, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, but you see, we think that it's exceptional. We think that because this person has upset us, we're upset with them. So we think that the problem, the location of the problem, we feel belongs to the other person.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Of course it belongs to the other person. Okay.
I just want to share something which happened just on Friday at my work.
Yeah, can you?
A colleague of mine was insulting.
Can you just do me a favor? Can you? We've got to finish this talk within a certain time period. So can you tell me? Can you tell me when we've been talking for 35 minutes? I haven't got my watch on me.
Okay, I got it. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what were you going to say? What happened?
No, so the point you made is that we deny it and we locate the problem with the other person, and you automatically slip into that way of thinking. And this happened to me just day before yesterday, on Friday at work. I found a colleague was spreading rumors which I felt were not right, and I immediately said, "Oh, what a unprofessional person." On the other side,
I bet you had other thoughts that you're not going to be saying here, which is fine. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be polite. I'm not going to use the bad words, which I know you wouldn't understand it anyway. It would be in Dutch.
Okay, we're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Bede.
Now, you see, this is a very interesting thing, because people and things give me the happiness or the security I want. They also have the power to take it away. That's the experience.
Yes.
That's the experience. So fundamentally, first of all, this fundamental universal problem that we as human beings have is the one of insecurity. And this creates a compulsive drive to acquire security through things and people.
Yep.
Okay. Now there's another aspect to this. Besides feeling insecure, we also feel very small and inferior.
Yeah.
Because here we are, we're this minute little particle in this huge universe, and this huge universe seems to bash us around occasionally, and it has this very unfortunate characteristic. It often doesn't line up with what we like. You agree with it? Have you noticed that?
Sure. I wish everything went just the way I wanted.
Yes, I know. I mean, yes. But the attempt, and we do attempt to make the universe line up with us, but the problem is that when we feel small and insignificant, we have to do something about that. We have to become bigger and better and best. So there's now, but we can't be obvious about this sort of stuff. We can't say to a person, "Hi, I'm going to just have a talk to you now. I'm going to try and impress you so that you can give me some indication that actually I'm pretty significant and important." We can't do that. No. What we have to do is we have to be smooth in terms of our social performance. Now, social performance is not a happy life. It doesn't mean happiness. It's good to have good social performance, but it doesn't result, and it's not meaningful, and it does not solve this fundamental problem. Sociopaths and politicians are good at human relations. They are skilled at it. So the fact that I can become skilled at presenting myself in an acceptable way and eliciting from others, "Oh, Bede, you're a very nice person," and blah blah blah. Okay, that does not solve the problem. It does give me a sense, of course it works. It does allay my fundamental anxiety about my insignificance. And you see, how do we know that we need approval from others? Very simple. Because if they don't approve of us, we feel very uncomfortable.
Yes.
So again, we think they are being mean because they're acting in a rejecting manner. And that because they're acting in a rejecting manner, I'm unhappy. That's the experience. Yeah. But in the light of Vedanta, no. Now, my teacher, Swamini Atma Prakashananda, said a very interesting thing to me the very first time I had a talk with her. She says, people and events don't hurt us. They only are instrumental in revealing an unhappiness and pain that is here, that is in us.
Yes.
Now, that's a very interesting thing because, you see, while we embrace the philosophy of blame, and this is the first hurdle as a student in Vedanta, while we embrace the philosophy of blame, the fruit or the benefit, which is immense for Vedanta, is not available to us because we think the location of the problem is somewhere else. And to be able to understand that it's not is in itself a big thing. This is where this sorts the men from the boys or the girls from the women.
Yes, but Bede, there is a certain doubt that I have there.
Yep.
You know, there are things which happen which are not correct. I mean, there are people who show hurtful behavior. Yep. And so, I mean, somebody sometimes does come to harm you physically.
Oh, no. Yeah, exactly. A good point. We're talking about the psychological reaction of hurt. We're not talking about being prudent. We're not saying that we have to be all loving to people and we don't have to associate with people who are unpleasant. There are people who actually, as we will go into this, at times we enjoy being hurtful because we're hurt. And when we retaliate, we enjoy being hurtful. Agree?
Right.
So the thing is it's the point is this, is that unless I fundamentally understand that when people act in a rejecting manner, that what happens is in the light of Vedanta, my reactions are a revelation as to what my real problem is. They are not a revelation about how bad other people are or the world.
Right.
Yeah. And this because you see, unless we can give up blame, you see, the other thing that Swamini told me was that this is the beginning of emotional maturity. The understanding that the location of the problem is with us. Notice I'm not saying that the location of the problem is us.
Yes.
I'm saying that the location of the problem is with us. We are the problem. You see what I mean?
What is the difference between the two?
Well, in the sense that the location of the problem is us.
Yes.
We are the problem. It is not saying that we can't blame ourselves. It's not a matter of blaming ourselves. Okay? It's just simply that the location is us. Our sense of ourself is the problem. When I am hurt, all of me is hurt.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
I feel as an individual, hurt and myself are one and the same when I'm hurt.
Right.
And this is fundamentally my problem. But all I wanted to go into at the moment is that whenever we experience any form of unhappiness because of what's happened, because of the actions of other people, or because of the events that are happening, the fundamental experience that is causing me the pain is not true. We don't deny the experience, and it's very important in Vedanta. We don't deny the experience. It's very important to realize I am experiencing myself now. I'm experiencing that person is hurting me. That is my experience.
Yes.
We don't deny that.
Right.
Right? But we have to. But what we do in Vedanta, which I'll be going on to later as we proceed with these talks, is how we can bring the light of Vedanta onto that experience and transform it. But yep.
As of now, you say that we acknowledge that there are hurtful experiences.
Yeah, because the experience of being hurt and being unhappy is universal. But we want to understand it. We want to understand it in the right light. We need to understand that it is not a statement about the world or other people. It is a revelation of my fundamental problem. And my fundamental problem, in Vedanta, we have a term called samsara.
Right.
And samsara is not a philosophical concept. It's not some romantic notion from India. Samsara is my striving to find security and happiness through other people and things. That is samsara. Because what it does, it constantly produces pain. Because have you noticed that people do not do exactly what you want them to do so that you can have that feeling of being secure and happy? Have you noticed that, by the way?
Sure, all the time.
All the time.
It started this morning. My daughter didn't sleep long enough.
Oh. It's amazing how the world upsets us so much. So fundamentally, so we have this because we feel small and insignificant, we have this extreme desire, this desire to become something different than that. The striving to become something different. And this striving is built around the idea, I must become something better. So I must be a good look in my own eyes and in the eyes of other people. Now, when I am a good look in my own eyes, I feel titillatingly fulfilled.
Yeah.
It's like this big balloon. It's blown up, you know, and like what you were saying before. You know, you said, well, sometimes people are not aware of the suffering. They're not. When the balloon is blown up to a certain degree, I can say quite comfortably, I am a very confident, calm, and collected person. And I don't bother about unhappiness. I've just got this positive mental attitude and I go for it. Right? Now, the problem is, what happens to balloons?
They burst. They burst.
They normally deflate. They normally get pricked, actually.
That's true. They deflate.
So here I am. I'm feeling quite good about myself. I'm feeling that I'm a very confident and cool, calm person. And then you say to me, Bede, in fact, you're a very insecure person. What do you mean I'm insecure?
Yeah, that's true.
Because, so the person who claims to be secure is not in actual fact. The reason that they present themselves and say that, well, I'm my own person, I'm totally secure in myself. You know what I mean? The fact that they have to say it, or the fact that you have to say it, or the fact that we have to continually promote ourselves to other people, to present ourselves in the most attractive and best way possible, hoping to put on a good enough performance to get the applause. We love the social applause. Must avoid the booze, though, because the booze is ego deflation.
Yes.
Where the applause is this titillating feeling of good. So the striving in life, besides this, so our life and happiness, you see, this thing is, when we're insecure, because we're subject to death, we're subject to harm, and because we're insecure, what happens is that we seek other people and events to protect us from that feeling, and the same way we also I just lost my train of thought there. I'm not sure what I was going to say anyway. But so in the same way, we have to promote ourselves because by necessity we have to defend ourselves against this fundamental unhappiness, which is universally denied, and we don't see it. We don't see it, and the reason we don't see it is because when we blame, the location isn't with us. It's you who made me unhappy.
Right. So that's just as natural to blame and not see the problem as the problem itself.
The blaming stops you seeing the problem. The blaming stops you seeing the problem. Now, so one of the first things that my teacher taught me was fundamentally how blame will prevent me from ever coming into contact with what my real problem is.
Yes.
Now, can we just talk about just another aspect? So we're talking about insecurity, the feeling of smallness or inferiority. That's why we have to be bigger and better and best. You know what I mean? We have to, show ourselves off a little bit. Basically, we were to be polite, it's called bragging, but we don't want to say that. But basically, we human beings, the desire to brag is basically based on that. And how often do you see that desire? All the time. We see it in operation all the time. Now, the second thing, have you ever had the experience, this situation's boring? Have you ever had that feeling that it's a boring situation?
Oh, yes.
Now,
waiting at the bus stop, it's boring.
Exactly. And it's far better to blame the bus stop than to say I am boring.
That's true.
That I feel empty now. I don't feel content with myself. No, it's the bus stop that's doing it and the fact that the bus is late.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, in Vedanta, in the light of Vedanta, again, this is a revelation of my fundamental unhappiness. So any form of discontent, any form of disturbance, and any form of fear or insecurity, any form of anger, this is a, This is a revelation of this primary unhappiness that we suffer from. Now, Swami Dayananda, who's one of my Vedanta teachers, because I'm studying here in India at the moment, studying Vedanta, he said a very interesting thing. He says that people do not seek happiness unless they feel they're unhappy already. I mean, that's an obvious thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you see, and it's not a very popular thing. I mean, this isn't something you can sell. You know, this is not something that I'd like to give you you see, there is a positive side to this, but the first primary step is we have to understand that we are caught in a tremendous unhappiness that drives us to act. It actually determines the way we are as an individual in this world. You see, this unhappiness is universal to every human being. And what happens is they develop their personality, the attitudes that you have towards yourself, towards other people, and towards events. You know, have you noticed it always remains the same sort of? Well, that attitude, why it doesn't shift and change is because it is your defense against this incredible unhappiness.
Yes.
Now, we're going to go into the positive aspect of this soon, but I fundamentally want to today make very clear the problem. Does that make sense? Because, you see, and we will not be able to see the problem unless we understand this first fundamental Vedantic principle. People and events never hurt us. They're only instrumental in revealing a pain that is already with us.
Yeah.
And you see, can you see that because I'm trying to look good in my own eyes and the eyes of other people, that actually, in one sense, makes self-honesty rather difficult, because self-honesty, you see, if I've got a cherished notion of myself, let's say that I've got this notion, and my teachers told me any notion I've got about myself, positive or negative, is erroneous.
Yes.
So if I've got a notion of myself that I'm a wonderfully honest person, right?
Right.
And then if I then see myself acting dishonestly,
right,
I'm not going to want to see that. I'm going to want to justify it immediately. Now, why do I want to justify it immediately?
Because it's a defense. So you don't want to see it. It hurts when you see yourself as dishonest. Perfect.
It defends me. So my justification, in Latin, justification means just, meaning just, to make just. I make it just because if I don't, I will feel disturbed. My basic fundamental problem will be revealed again. And we don't want that to happen, do we? Oh, no. Okay, so see, now when you first come across this, I've been studying Vedanta for 3.5 years. But I found this extraordinary, really. I found this, you see, I found this extraordinary because it is such an obvious fact when you see it, but it's not obvious. Because there is a collective collusion. We all pretend that everything's fine. Even though relationships are breaking up wholesale all around us, there's all forms of conflict and unhappiness and all of this sort of stuff. all around us. It's actually the norm. And yet,
Right.
yet we, as a resistance to this unhappiness, we try to fool ourselves and others. Do you know what I mean? By trying to be confident and to be our own person. Because culturally now, through social media and through talk shows and stuff like that, we kind of know what the heroic ideal is. We are our own person and we're confident and we're, of course we are! Because we need to feel we are. But the problem is it's balloon blowing. You blow up the balloon and someone will prick it. Now, here's the point. You see, the word sincerity is a very interesting word, sincerity, as opposed to pretense. Now, we live in a pretentious culture. There's an American, I think he's an American poet by the name of T.S. Eliot. And he said, he said, to put on the face, to meet the faces of the faces that you shall meet. Now, the thing is, so social life is pretentious, but it has a very important defensive function. Because when I conform to it and I get lost in the drama of it, I can feel secure. You see? Now, but sincerity is a very interesting word. Sincerity, in the old days when they used to, make sculptures, and they'd marble and they'd make a mistake and they'd put a crack in it, they'd put wax in the crack so that it would look good. That's true. Sincerity means without wax. Without wax. Now, have you noticed that when one of the most important things in life is a good friendship where you can be honest with someone. With your friends you can be honest, can't you? So basically with cracks and all, you can be sincere. Now, but self-sincerity, in order for us to study Vedanta, we need to be sincere. In other words, see, these days I get quite excited when I start to see my pain. Because it's a wonderful opportunity. It's because, as I'm going to go through after, once we actually have the pain in our awareness, when we bring the light of Vedanta to the pain, then that pain can get resolved. But we can't bring the light of Vedanta to the pain if the pain is not there. This is the whole point. So the thing is that you see, as an individual, in order to, you see, Vedanta says quite a wonderful thing about a human being. It says that you are not what you appear to be. You are not this physical limited body. It says that the truth of yourself, it actually is immortal. It's unborn. It's complete and utter security. It's complete freedom. That's what it says. However, if we don't, as an individual, experience a foretaste of that, if we do not come to a mental composure, a relative security, composure, peace, and contentment that's arising in ourself, independent of people and things, if we can't come to that, none of what Vedanta is unfolding in terms of the truth of ourselves will be able to sink in. We have to be able to understand peace in its relative form before we can have it in its absolute form. We must understand security in its relative form before we can have total security. And we must understand contentment in its relative form before we can discover total contentment. That's the teaching. Now, I don't know much about total contentment or total security or whatever, right? But the fundamental practice, which we call karma yoga, which we'll be going into, what it does is it brings about a relation to the whole in which we begin to experience ourselves as an individual who is secure, peaceful, and content.
Bede, just as a matter of time, we're now about an hour and 10 minutes trying this. Do you want to continue? I have about...
We've got 40 minutes, actually. How long is the tape been going?
I don't, because I didn't start, the starting moment didn't, but we are about half an hour now.
Okay, that's
We're
fine.
about 20 minutes.
We've got
Yeah,
another,
about half an hour now.
we've got another 10 minutes. It's fine.
Okay.
So fundamentally,
You're talking about looking at people, just a recap. So you say the fundamental problem I understand of security, and well, let me say I hear you, and you talk about the question of putting the blame and the location of the problem outside you, and blame is, and all these actions and all these things which you do is to place the problem outside.
No, the action. No, the thing. No. What it is all the actions that we do is to defend ourselves against the fundamental unhappiness. And
yes.
When unhappiness appears, we don't think the unhappiness lies with us. We think the unhappiness lies with the action of other people, and therefore we don't have access to the problem. If we do not have access to the problem, there is no solution to the problem. It's like when I'm looking at, it's like I'm thinking the problem is a snake, not the rope, in the sense of when it's dark. You know, the metaphor that when it's dark, we might mistake a rope for a snake. And what we're doing is experiencing a snake. So while we're still experiencing a snake, what we have to do is we have to see that we have to see what the true problem is.
Right. So that is the fundamental crux, right? So you have to recognize the problem before you move forward.
That's right. And also you have to give up the philosophy of blame. You have to become very thoroughly convinced that people and events do not hurt me.
Right.
You see, when I first did this, when I first heard this from my Swamini, I would do this. I go, oh, there it goes again. Okay, the pain. Okay, this with me. Now, I know I'm having the experience that it's because of my wife or because of this person or that person, but in actual fact, this is a revelation of my pain. The pain that I'm suffering from, it is located with me. I am experiencing myself as a person in pain. This is my problem.
Yes. So
that is really, but I'm not to blame for it.
So you say, okay, I locate the problem myself and say I am not to blame myself for it, but I'm also not going to blame outside people for it.
I'm going to understand it instead. I'm going to understand. Now, this is where the light of Vedanta comes in.
But whom should I blame then?
No one. This is the whole point. What I do is, I know it sounds strange, but what the whole point is that we, instead of blaming, we understand it in the light of Vedanta. This is the whole point. You see, we can't do anything about experience. That's just going to come. But what we can do is we can understand it in a different light. You see?
So fundamentally, you are telling me that the blaming route is not going to get the pain away. So you're saying that's like a dead end. So the blaming route is not going to going to remove my pain. To recognize my pain and locate it within myself and own it up with myself is fundamental. That's what you say. Is that
fundamental? Yes, very good point. Because fundamentally, if you are my problem, I can't help but compulsively try to manipulate you to fix you up so that I can feel right. So instead of feeling right in myself, I try to make you right with me so that I can feel right. Fundamentally, the problem of samsara is the problem of dependence.
Correct.
We're not blaming. We're just, but what I'm saying is it's so important to be able to understand this so fundamentally. If we do not understand this fundamentally, we will not see the value of Vedanta. It'll just be a nice little spiritual thing from India that we can do.
Right. So how do I do this in my daily life? How do I recognize this problem in my daily life?
That's what we're going to be talking about. The good news is that there is a way of life. There is a way of understanding our daily life in the light of Vedanta and responding to life in a different way, which we're going to be going into in the other discussions that we're going to have, which transforms us from being an individual who is fundamentally experiencing themselves as insecure and disturbed and unsatisfied or unfulfilled, to an individual who has relative security, contentment, and composure or peace.
Yes.
That's our fundamental, but we have a fundamental way of an approach to that we're going to do. But all I wanted to do today as an introduction, fundamentally, we have to see that we have this problem because Vedanta is only relevant to this problem. It doesn't help anything else. It is not, you see, one of the wonderful things that Swami Dayananda told us at the beginning of when we started studying this course about 5 months ago is he says, I want to help cure you of all spiritual romanticism. See, we can have this idea, oh, it's all nice and spiritual, you know, become bliss bunnies, use peace and love and all of that stuff. Again, this wanting to be full of peace and love is a defense against this fundamental thing. Because, you see, particularly because when human beings have been hurt, they want to hurt back the hostile. That worries them because it's not a good look in their own eyes. So then they desperately try to become holy and they try and become spiritual. Again, that won't work because there'll always be people who'll prick the bubble, the balloon, and then you'll want to be hostile. So just to sum up.
Yes.
Fundamentally, us as human beings have this fundamental problem. Now, in our series of conversations that we're going to be having, we're going to unpack this in minute detail and so that we can see when we're not going to use this on other people. We're not trying to change other people here. Fundamentally, it's us. Fundamentally, Vedanta is for me. It is not for me to use on other people. If I want to use it on other people, that's becoming. Because then I'm thinking, these poor ignorant people around me, they need to be fixed. The only reason that I'm seeing them as poor and ignorant is because then I can elevate myself a little bit more and I can defend myself against this fundamental problem. Are we making sense here? This problem is universal. It pervades our life entirely. It is worthy of a remedy. Now, the thing about Vedanta is that because it lets us understand this in the right way, for example, the teaching, people and events don't hurt us. They're only instrumental in revealing a pain that's already there. That is an illuminating light, isn't it? It enables us to see when we're standing at the bus stop and we're sure that we're bored because the bus ain't coming and it's boring. When we suddenly see, oh, there I go again. I'm being very boring. Big difference. So that's what we're going to. That's what we're going to. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for engaging in this conversation with me.
Thank you, Bede.
And it was my pleasure. And I look forward to our next session. And then the next thing, what we're going to do is we're going to even go into this in greater depth because there are things like guilt, there's things like hurt, there's all sorts of things that we need to go into so that we'll be extremely clear in seeing the fact that this problem of samsara, this dependence on other people and things for our happiness pervades everything we do. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. But before we see the light and value the light, we have to see that we suffer from the disease. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very nice. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.